Alright guys, just got out seeing Oz the Great and Powerful. The prequel, I guess you could say, to The Wizard of Oz. Tells how the wizard got to Oz to begin with, how the Wicked Witch came to be, how everything kind of... honestly... I like that they didn't just go with a remake of The Wizard of Oz. I like that they didn't try and do another sequel, because there was a sequel to The Wizard of Oz called Return to Oz. There's a lot of animated features that deal with the original text. There was an animated feature, I think it was called, like, The Lion of Oz and the Badge of Courage or something, that kind of explains what the lion was doing prior to meeting up with Dorothy and the others, and it kind of ties in that he had the Badge of Courage before, lost it, and somehow got it back from the wizard later. There's other animated features that I haven't seen, but they kind of explain a lot of the backstories in those as well. But this one goes somewhat off the original text, I guess. It basically starts out with the wizard, whose name is Oscar something. His last name starts with a Z, but his first name is Oscar, so they call him Oz for short, which Oz being short for Oscar and his initials OZ. And so he's a carnival magician, basically. You know, you go to the county fair when it comes into town, and you go into the tent and you see him perform the levitating lady act and whatever. So it turns out that he's kind of a womanizer. He's interviewing, well, not really interviewing, but talking to his new assistant, who's basically just going to be the plant in the audience. And he does this little thing where he gives her a music box and tells her it was his grandmother's, and starts to make out with her. And then it's like, hey, his assistant comes in and says, hey, it's showtime, we gotta go. So they go and do the show. And then after the show, you find out that he pulled the same act with the strongman's girlfriend in the circus. So the strongman's coming to kick his ass, and he takes off running, gets into the balloon. The strongman's pulling the rope to the balloon to come down, and he cuts the rope loose and flies away. Everyone's chasing him, and then he's like, I'll see you in Maine or wherever they were planning to go next. And then he sees that everyone turns around and starts to run away from him. He thinks, haha, I won, and then he turns around and he sees the tornado. The balloon goes into the tornado, he's getting whipped around, and a bunch of stuff comes slamming through the basket of the balloon, and he's kind of ducking down, and he's praying, saying, if you let me get out of this, I promise I'll change my ways, blah, blah, blah. So he finally gets out of the tornado. He lands in Oz, or he's floating over Oz, I guess. It goes to color, goes to the widescreen. The first part of the movie that's in black and white is done in this, I guess, standard format, so it's cropped in from the sides, but it looks really weird, especially on the movie screen. And then as he goes into Oz and everything shifts into color, it expands out to being full screen, widescreen, whatever you want to call it for theatrical. So he's floating around Oz, and then he kind of lands in the water, goes off a waterfall, the balloons flying everywhere, and is kind of floating down the river, and he's looking at all the stuff kind of in amazement. And then the current finally brings him to a stop, and then the basket of the balloon starts to sink because he's at a standstill now. And then he's freaking out. He's like, I can't swim, help, help. And it's like 2 feet of water. So he stands up, and that's when he meets Theodora, who says she's a good witch. And she tells him, there's a prophecy from the old king that a wizard bearing the name of the land would appear and fight off the Wicked Witch. And so he pulls his routine with her. She's like, you're going to be the king of Oz, and I would love to be your queen type of thing. So he's kind of got her roped into that. So he's got her roped into that, and she takes him back to the Emerald City, where he meets her sister. I believe her name was Eleonora and Theodora, something like that. And she says, you're the king now. Here's the royal treasure. All you have to do is destroy the Wicked Witch. So they tell him where to find the Wicked Witch. He goes after her. Along the way, he meets a flying monkey. The Wicked Witch has flying baboons in this one. So the flying monkey is like a weaker rendition of them, but yeah, their flying baboons are the evil ones. The flying monkey is loosely based on his assistant from back in the real world. He meets as they're walking down the yellow brick road to go find the Wicked Witch, they come to the fork in the road where one way leads back to the Emerald City, one way leads to the Munchkin Village, one way leads to something else from the Wizard of Oz, and then the third way leads to Chinatown, which they see smoke coming from Chinatown, so the flying monkey says we should go and help. So they go down there, and it's basically an entire city made of teapots and cups and whatnot, China. So it's not a racist Chinatown, but then he finds all the China people, who were also made of China, like porcelain dolls type of thing, have all been destroyed, and then he hears a little one crying. He goes in, and it's a little porcelain China girl, and her legs are broken off, but he happens to have some glue, so he glues her legs back on. They go back out to the fork in the road. He tells her to go back to the Emerald City, tell her that, tell everyone that I sent you, you'll be fine. She goes, no, I want to go with you. So he finally says, okay, come with us. Then they go into the dark woods, which is the part you see in the preview when the crows say, you're going to die, which kind of goes into the Wizard of Oz when they went into the forest that said, turn back or whatever the sign said. But, so they go into the woods and they come up to a cemetery where they find the Wicked Witch, who turns out to be Glenda, the Good Witch, which she says the Good Witch of the South, but in the original Wizard of Oz film, she was the Good Witch of the North. I do know one of the animated features did introduce the Good Witch of the South, but I think she had a different name. So that might just be either that's something from the original text that they messed up in the original movie, or this movie messed it up from the original. Not sure which way that goes, but one of the two. So they meet her, and they find out that she's actually the Good Witch, and Eleonora is the Wicked Witch. But Eleonora is basically the sister of the Wicked Witch that gets killed by the falling house at the beginning of The Wizard of Oz. Because what happens next is Eleonora shows Theodora that the wizard basically dumped her for Glenda. So she's becoming enraged, and she's bitter and upset that she was in love with him and he's basically dumped her. So she starts crying, but her tears are like acid and they start to burn her face, and she's telling her sister how much it hurts. And her sister says, I can make it all go away if you'll trust me. She says, make it go away. So she gives her an apple. She takes a bite of the apple, and suddenly she realizes, Glenda's not the bad witch, you are. And I was foolish to be helping you this whole time, even though you were my sister. But then she starts to have some pain, and she falls over or something, and then as she comes back up, her hand is green and has the black claws, and that's the scene where the hand's digging into the tabletop. So, turns out that Theodora becomes the Wicked Witch of the West. It's from the Wizard of Oz. The green-skinned one with the big nose flies around on the broom. So, Theodora is played by Mila Kunis, and now Mila Kunis basically has a prosthetic pointy chin, a prosthetic big nose, and is basically painted green and black lips. So it basically looks like Mila Kunis painted green, wearing the prosthetics from The Mask, the Jim Carrey movie. So, yeah, it doesn't really look that close to the original Wicked Witch, but you can see what they're going for. I don't think Mila Kunis pulls off the Wicked Witch role that well. She talks kind of normally, kind of in her screechy tone. If you watched her in that 70s show, you'll know her screechy tone from when she would get mad at everyone. And, but then as they have her flying away and she's doing the witch's cackle, you can tell they, what do you call that? You can tell they put in the witch's cackle from a previous recording, not from Mila Kunis doing it, because it doesn't match the sound of her voice at all, but it matches the original witch's cackle from The Wizard of Oz. So the bite of the apple turned her completely evil, and the realization that her sister was the evil one is kind of gone. It doesn't matter anymore, because now the bite of the apple has turned her evil. Her sister sees that she's turned green, and she's like, oh, I can cast a spell to return you to your beautiful form. And she says, no, leave me the way I am. I want him to know that he's the one that did this. So, some other stuff goes on, and the wizard, Glinda, and the China girl and the monkey go to the Munchkin village, which has the yellow brick road spiraled in the center, but it doesn't have the opposing red brick road that was in the Wizard of Oz. It's just kind of cobblestone with the gold bricks or yellow bricks. So Glinda's showing him around the Munchkin village, and there's basically 3 people that live there. There's the farmers, the tinkerers, and the Munchkins. So he's trying to assemble an army, but then finds out that everyone in Oz is forbidden to kill, so they can't destroy the 2 wicked witches without... Well, he can, but the people who live there are forbidden to. So through the course of his experiences with parlor magic, he comes up with an idea with the tinkerers and whatnot to create the machine, basically, that he has at the end of the Wizard of Oz, where it's just his giant head, and pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, that thing. So the tinkerers help him build it, and he goes to fight the witches, and he lets them believe that they've destroyed him. He sneaks off into the machine, and they basically have his giant head floating over the Emerald City. And he's like, by destroying me, you've made me more powerful, and I am the wizard from the prophecy, so on and so forth. And they're throwing fireballs at him and stuff, and it's just going through him because he's an illusion. So basically, they start to get fearful of his power, and Theodora finally flies away on, the Wicked Witch flies away on her broom, and he calls out to her, he goes, I know that you're not naturally evil, your sister made you this way, and if you can ever find the good in your heart again, you're welcome to return. She says, I'll never return, and flies away. Eleonora, the other sister, snuck away, has a battle with Glinda, ends up losing, and she flies away somehow too. I don't remember how she got away. But yeah, she gets away too, because obviously she gets killed when the house falls on her in The Wizard of Oz. She didn't have the ruby slippers though, so that might come in another time. Maybe they're going to make a sequel to this one later on that explains where she got the ruby slippers, which will end with the house falling probably. But, so yeah, then the wizard, him and the Tinkerers set up the machine inside of the throne room of the Emerald City. And basically he says, we have to keep up the illusion that I no longer exist in any form other than this, and if anyone wants to see me, they can come in and talk to the giant floating head, blah, 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 blah. And that's kind of the end of the movie. Him and Glenda kiss. But even though that was never really touched upon in The Wizard of Oz, so not sure what happened there. But might just be something that was omitted from the movie, or from the original text to the movie translation, whatever. But yeah, so that's The Wizard of Oz, Oz the Great and Powerful. Overall, I kind of liked what they were trying to do with it, but I don't think the cast was all that great, and I don't think it was executed that well. A lot of overused CGI with the colors and everything. The original Wizard of Oz, it went from being like a brownish tone, like old style black and white film, which had kind of a reddish brown tint to it, into being bright and colorful. And this one, all the bright and colorful, well, they start out in black and white, which doesn't really match. I would have liked it more if they would have went with like the lighting filters that Tim Burton used on Sleepy Hollow, where everything had color, but it was really drabbed down and had like a brown overcast to it. I'm not sure what filters he used for that, but if you watch Sleepy Hollow, you'll see how I think they should have started it and then went into the colors. And personally, I would like to have seen them go over the top colors, like kind of like Dayglow, or maybe like more fluorescent, like what you would see under a black light. Kind of like Jesus, I almost say it, but because it's almost there, but they went to CGI with it. But I was gonna say more Batman Forever type with the amount of colorization that was done in that movie, which is kind of where they went with it. But you can tell a lot of it's heavy CGI. Not very many practical effects at all with it, obviously. So the actors, I don't really like the guy that got to play the wizard. Mila Kunis, even though I like her as an actress, I don't think she was the right person to play that role. The flying monkey guy sounded a lot like Billy Crystal. I think it might have been voiced by him, even though he wasn't the guy who played the assistant at the beginning. Glenda was okay, I guess. Eleanor, it's hard to tell because you have nothing to compare her to, so I'd say hers is fine. So yeah, basically just Mila Kunis, I think, was the wrong choice for this role, even though I think she's a good actress. But yeah, for the most part, she was just painted green and wearing a Jim Carrey The Mask mask, it looked like. Basically, if she had been in the mask and put on the mask, this is what her face would have looked like with the mask on, type of thing. Except the rest of her body was painted green, too. The wizard, what the hell's his name? I think it's James Franco or something like that. And I don't know, he doesn't have the right look, or I don't think he really played the part that well. I kind of wish they would have downplayed the whole he's a womanizer type thing. Because the guy in the beginning of The Wizard of Oz, who was still a carnival fortune teller, not a magician, he was a fortune teller, who later portrayed the role of the wizard once that lived in the Emerald City. He was just a kindly old man. I kind of wish they would have just went with that, like maybe he was a misunderstood person, like he wanted to be respected for his magic, but like at one point when he's doing the act, some people start yelling they can see wires, and he's like, I don't need wires, and he cuts the wires with a sword, and the girl's still floating. I almost wish they would have played that up more, like, he just wants to be respected for his craft, but, maybe he's not the best magician, so everyone kind of boos him, type of thing. Like, there's one point when there's a crippled girl in the front row after his act that says, can you make me walk, and he's trying to politely tell her, I would like to make you walk, but I can't. And then everyone's like, oh, if you can't make her walk, you're a fraud. And they start throwing lettuce and vegetables and crap at him. So I kind of wish they would have played that up more. Like, he just wants to be respected. He's kind, but people don't grasp, the concept or something. So he's just misunderstood instead of making him the womanizer. But I guess they had to do that in order for the Theodora character to become the Wicked Witch, and because he broke her heart type of thing. But how would she have known that that was the type of person he was when she didn't know him in the real world? I don't know. It gets confusing, but yeah, it was over-the-top CGI. I really didn't like all the CGI in it. It didn't, like I said, the original one was very colorful, and that's what I liked about it. They could have done the same thing here without having to use all the CGI stuff, but I guess there was some stuff from the original text that they just couldn't translate with practical effects, so they had to go CGI with it, but it became really cartoony, which I didn't like. Overall, I found it really kind of boring. Like I said, I liked what they were trying to do. It just wasn't executed well. Yeah, so now I'm just kind of rambling about it. If you like The Wizard of Oz, I guess check it out just to see how it compares, especially if you're into the books and everything. You might like it more than I did. I've never read the original books. But, yeah, as far as a movie, I like the original better. Yeah, like I said, I was just really kind of bored with it. Even though I like what they were trying to do, I was just bored. As far as a star rating, like I said, I liked what they were trying to do with it, but I was really bored with it. So for that, I would probably give it a 2-star rating. If I hadn't been so bored with it, I probably would have gave it a 3 for being decent, but since I was bored, it loses a bit there. I don't want to knock it down to a 1 because I do appreciate what they were trying to do with it, but it's barely a 2. It was probably pushing more of a 1.5, but I will give it a 2 just because I like the overall concept. I just think it could have been better executed, and I was really bored with the story. And not that The Wizard of Oz or the Oz Great and Powerful is a boring story, it's just this execution of it. There wasn't anything to keep me entertained, or keep me drawn into what was going on. So, yeah, 2 stars on this. Other than that, that's about it. This review's kind of long, so I might see if I can edit it down a bit. Not sure what I'm going to get around to seeing next. So until next time, thanks for watching, and see you at the movies.